Good morning. My name is Nika Rose Magboo and my partner Kian Alexandra Adsuara, and we will be discussing to you about reflecting telescope. The concept that curved mirrors operate like lenses may be traced back to Alhazen's 11th century optics book, widely translated into Latin in early modern Europe. Galileo, Giovanni Francesco Sagredo, and others debated the notion of making a telescope using a mirror as the image forming an objective shortly after discovering the refracting telescope, spurred on by their knowledge of the physics of curved mirrors.
According to legend, Cesare Caravaggio of Bolognese made out in 1626, while Italian scholar Niccolo Zucchi wrote in a later book that he had attempted using a concave bronze mirror in 1616 and did not produce a good picture. Several reflecting telescope designs were suggested because of the potential benefits of utilizing parabolic mirrors, including decreasing spherical aberration with no chromatic aberration.
James Gregory, for example, published an inventive design for a reflecting telescope in 1663.
The experimental Robert Hooke needed 10 years in the year 1673 to develop this telescope, which became known as the Gregorian telescope.
In 1668, Isaac Newton was credited with building the first reflecting telescope, an optical setup known as the Newtonian telescope. Used a spherically ground metal primary mirror and a tiny diagonal mirror. Despite the theoretical benefits of the reflector design, the difficulties of fabrication and the poor performance of the speculum metal mirrors in use meant it took more than a century for them to gain popularity.
The development of parabolic mirrors in the 18th century, silver-coated glass mirrors in the 19th century, which built by Leon Foucault in 1858. In the 20th century, long-lasting aluminum coatings segmented mirrors to allow greater diameters and active optics. To compensate for gravity deformation were all introduced.
Catadioptric telescopes, such as the Schmidt camera, are mid-century innovations that use both a spherical mirror and a lens as major optical elements and use wide-field imaging without spherical aberration.
Adaptive optics and Loci imaging were developed in the late 20th century to address vision difficulties, and reflecting telescopes are now commonplace on space observatories and various sorts of spacecraft imaging systems.
Isaac Newton in the 17th century invented the reflecting telescope. In 1668, he constructed a reflecting telescope. Instead of using a lens, it had a single curved primary mirror and a smaller flat mirror.
Mirrors are used in reflecting telescopes to let astronomers see faraway objects in space more clearly. The picture forms when a mirror collects light from objects in space. The picture is reflected in another mirror by the original mirror, which can be rather large.
Due to the employment of the mirror, chromatic aberration was not a concern with the telescope. When compared to other telescopes, it is less costly. The short focal ratio results in a larger field of view.
The disadvantage of reflecting telescope is the following. So for the first one, due to the spherical form of the mirror, there is an issue with spherical aberration. Second, there is a problem with the primary and secondary mirrors becoming misaligned during use. Number 3. Transportation. As a result, the telescope must be realigned regularly. Number 4. Lastly, the image contrast is diminished owing to the secondary mirror's blockage.